Hey everyone, Ivy League Gaming here, and today we're playing Raid Shadow Legends, and I wanted to test Helicath as soon as I could in Hydra. So, this team, there's some stars in this team, of course, that you may be like, well, I don't have them. But honestly, this is kind of my B team. So I'm going to explain the roles of these people and why they're good for this rotation of Hydra, and show why Helicath is wonderful for Hydra, and why you should build him for it, and how you should build him, right? Honestly, there's so much more potential in this team right here that I did that I haven't unleashed yet. So this team is kind of funny, actually. So Geomancer, this is my first Geomancer that I built. He does not have enough resistance to resist the Head of Mischief. Then we have enough accuracy, though, to land his stuff, of course. But Geo, I do have a second Geo that's better, that is in reflex gear. So he has a chance to come back to his skills even more often than he already does, thanks to that boost from Chamel. But when it comes to Geo, my Geo's not perfect. This is my second Geo. This could be better. That could be better from Geo. Then we have Siffy. You don't need Siffy. Honestly, Siffy's kind of a bad choice for this. The only reason I chose her is because she actually brings some extra healing along with her. But it's just Siffy heals and revives was all I really needed from Siffy. Increased speed is okay, but I don't really need it for hard. I did try using some of these. I do use some of these people on the Brutal key as well. I got almost a 1-key Brutal, guys. Almost. But that's another story. But you don't need Siffy for this role. Honestly, the best person for this role in Hydra as your reviver, your healer, is probably Godseeker, because she also brings other utility regarding blocking buffs. Or sorry, not blocking buffs, sorry. Reducing the duration of a buff on an enemy and then boosting yours, and she also revives, and she's just a really, and she has the passive revive as well. Then we have Chamel here. Wait, here we have Chamel here. This is my Chamel that is not in toxic gear, so but he does have War Master or Giant Slayer, I can't remember now. We'll take a quick look at my champs though. But the Siffy is not in War Master Mastery. So if we had a reviver that actually had War Master Mastery, that damage would be better. If we had Chamel here in Toxic, that damage could be better. Helicath has no masteries, but he was wonderful support and a little bit of damage. Not too shabby there. He was wonderful support though. I don't have him at 100% crit rate, so that's part of it. But I did build him with a 466 resistance. Now that could be a little bit better. It's not glyphed, so I wanted to make sure we could resist the Head of Mischief stealing our buffs, at least from him. So some of my people have resisted, some of them don't. Ugo, the next one, she has resistance. Block buffs, really great. If you don't have Ugo, Umbral is an amazing shout for the block buff roll. And then we have Husk down there just for some extra damage. And I guess if the Head of Decay pops up, you can maybe provoke that head with his A1. But my Husk does have decent resistance as well, over 400, just like Ugo and Helicath. Now, I need to work on getting the rest of my team as a full resistance team for sake of Hydra when dealing with the Head of Mischief, but it's okay for now, honestly. Mostly targeted Helicath, who had good resistance, so I got lucky in my rotation. But Helicath's role is dealing with the Head of Wrath, honestly, or just overall keeping your people alive and not having to be revived as often. That shield is so good. He also puts up block damage, right? So sorry, let's go take a look at the champs. Let's go take a look. We're gonna keep this key, obviously. Boom, that's a 1-key hard. Now I'm gonna quickly show you guys my Brutal key. I like how it goes right down to Brutal. Wait, there it is. I was like, excuse me. There's my 1-key hard. My Brutal was not a 1-key. It was only 23 million. I actually did have Helicath in here instead of Cardio, but I think I need to get masteries on my Helicath first, and I also don't have masteries on my Chamel that has a toxic set. He doesn't have War Master or Giant Slayer. Nothing to help him there. That's a bummer. We need it. And same thing with I think this Geo is also missing masteries, maybe. Can't remember now, but he is in reflex. So this Geo's my reflex Geo. He comes back to his skills a little more often thanks to that reflex gear. Lydia's amazing to pair with Chamel and Geo. This is just those as a trio, amazing. I wish I had more God Seekers to put in this comp, but I don't. But let's go take a look. I'm going to show you guys my Helicath, and now I have him built for sake of Hydra. He's the star of our conversation just in general, because now that we have these rotations with the Head of Wrath coming up, he is going to be great for it. So let me get myself back here a little bit more normal in this corner, and I'll show you guys how I have my Helicath built. So in a perfect world, I'd have him in reflex gear, maybe regen gear, whatever, but honestly, he doesn't really need it. He doesn't really need it. So the way I built him was focused on resistance. I did not worry about accuracy with that weaken debuff, although sometimes he still places it. His banner's not maxed. I was going to try to put some damage on him, but I wasn't able to get the crit rate I wanted, so I didn't worry too much. I probably could trade this amulet out for a defense amulet. But I do have defense and HP for sake of survivability here in Hydra. Resistance with defense and speed was what I was looking for his banner. I actually stole Duchess's banner for him. We have resistance here with this Fortitude Baumel set piece here, defense plus resistance. Really, really, really great. If you guys have some fortitude to build, go right ahead and do it. Use it on your Helicath if you plan to use them in Hydra, because that is helpful. You want to be able to resist the Head of Mischief stealing your buffs. You also want to resist the poisons being thrown at you from the Head of Blight. Now, the Head of Blight you don't need as much resistance for as you do for the Head of Mischief, but it's fine. I'm going to quick shout out to Hell Hades' site, his stages tool, if you guys want to know exactly how much resist, how much speed, how much whatever you need for sake of beating any enemies. You can always reference that tool to see what stats the enemy has so you know how to counter it. Now I'll leave a link for that below. If I forget, feel free to yell at me in the comments and I'll make sure I pin it or add it to the pin. Sometimes I forget. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll make sure I link that. Completely forget. But yeah, I have a lot of stuff not glyphed here. I probably should go through and glyph. It is CVC when I'm recording this, so that's nice. I did get a triple crit rate on this Fortitude helmet, so that did help give me a little bit of crit rate, but we only ended up with 56% crit rate, so that really wasn't my focus. I just tried to get a little bit in there, and he does surprisingly crit often, even at 56%. Like, it's better than nothing, and it just helps to increase the damage, and he actually does really good damage. Now, look. This is really low defense for Helicath, but I wanted to balance it out with some HP just for sake of Hydra overall. I just feel like the balance is a little bit better. And I wasn't overly focused on having to get like 7,000 defense, because for me personally, getting this resistance was more important, because I do want to work toward having a full team with everyone at over 400, ideally over 450 resistance for countering at least Brutal Hydra Head of Mischief. Now, Nightmare is another story. That's going to be hard. I really haven't been hitting Nightmare yet, honestly, guys. It's just intimidating, I guess, but at least now we have the keys and the flexibility to play around, right? So I do try to have everyone over 200 speed. So let's take a look. I'll show you my other people that I use in Hydra so you can kind of get a feel of my teams and what I'm doing in Hydra. So my first key with Brutal, you can actually, Cardial's amazing, guys. If you use Cardial for Hydra, so good. I'm not going to show you his details. He's built for Arena, as you can tell. He's for Arena. He's not built for PvE. I wish I used to have him in War Master Mastery. He doesn't have that anymore. Oh well. Same thing. My Siffy that I'm using in Hydra. She's my Siffy. She's in speed gear. She's fast. Doesn't have much resistance, but enough to resist the poisons from the Head of Blight at least. And then she has masteries for Arena, not for Hydra. So it is what it is. Ideally, I might build a if I had another Siffy, I would +2 probably. No, I wouldn't +2. One, because having 2 Siffys is really nice. If I got a third Siffy, let's just be greedy up in here. If I got a third Siffy, I'd make one for PvE with War Master Mastery only. But let's not get greedy. So we have Lydia. She's also someone I always am using in Hydra as well. That would have been more ideal in this comp too, but it worked out the way it worked out. So I'm not going to complain. Lydia I do have with War Master Mastery and typical like Clan Boss Masteries because I use her so much in PvE. I don't really use her in Arena. Let's go take a look here. We have Helicath, of course. We already showed. So that's no masteries. No masteries. And my only books I have, actually my books landed perfect. Literally, oh, not perfect, because this is risky. I will not put another book into Helicath because, well, we want this, right? And we want this as well to be on the same cooldown if you're doing regular clan boss setups. Now, this is a 4-turn cooldown. Now, this is a 4-turn cooldown. If this goes down to a 3-turn cooldown, don't want it. Don't want it. But I would want that for Hydra. That's the sad part. But because I get access to the test server and my account gets pretty much cloned on the test server, I need to have Helicath in the proper stats for sake of doing some clan boss comps in the future on the test server. So unfortunately my Hydra is going to have to suffer and miss out from shields more often, and hopefully we'll be fine. But honestly, he did just fine without it. Ooh, I had an eyelash in my eye. Whew, I'm okay. All right, so again, in a perfect world you would land all of these. You would land the first 4, but not this one. And you would land this. But right now, because the risk of the next book landing here is present, I'm not even going to try to book this. Just for sake of future clan boss, regular clan boss. So just keep that in mind, guys. Don't book him unless you need to. Unless you know you're never going to use him in standard clan boss. Then go right ahead. If you're only going to use him in Hydra or general PvE, go right ahead, book that. It's not a bad idea. All right, so let's get back to this comp here. So we're talking Chamel. I have 2 Chamels. This is the Chamel I used. He was in Toxic. Oh wait, the one I used was not in Toxic. The one that I used was not in Toxic. So this Chamel is kind of a hybrid mix. He does have a 100% crit rate with decent crit damage, but I did pump up a little bit of HP on him using this Immortal set here just to help him survive, right? So I think let's see, he actually has HP ring with defense and HP stats just to give him a little bit of survivability because he was so squishy. Now, one thing I can think about, depending on which team I'm using him in, if I'm consistently using him with someone like Helicath, Valkyrie, if I'm doing something like that, then I can probably take the time to put more attack on him, less HP, because I don't have to worry about survivability as much with those big fat shields. As long as they don't get stolen from the Head of Mischief, which I don't have enough resistance for that. So if I want to not worry about his shields and stuff getting stolen completely, I either have to have him in a comp with like Lord Chamfort that's always going to have the most buffs, or I have to have the entire team with like 450 or more for Nightmare resistance. So that's a lot to think about. It's a lot of work. All right, let's readjust here. Okay. Onward. So he doesn't have crazy attack, he doesn't have crazy crit damage, but he's got enough speed. He could be a little bit faster, honestly. And I do have him with Giant Slayer Masteries. He does hit a lot, so certainly is helpful. I do have 2 Chamels here. This is the one I used for my first comp. He is in Toxic Gear, but no War Master Mastery. So this is a little bit sad. I need to work on that. That's a plan. I'm going to get that done right away at least before the next round of Hydra. So I used Umbral in my other comp. You could use Umbral instead of Ugo for this team. Umbral's amazing for block buffs because she keeps it up so often. 3-turn cooldown, 3-turn block buffs, it's always up. I had no trouble when in my other comp on Brutal keeping the buffs up 100% of the time. The only trouble I had, I should say, is when the Head of Decay decided to pop up instead of the other heads, right? That's something you have to worry about. But yeah, she is just so good for the block buffs role. But for my block buffs role in this team that I showed you guys, I actually used Ugo. She's chilling in my vault right now, I guess. Where's Ugo? There she is. Let's bring her back out. Hey, girl, hey. Come on, Ugo. All right, so my Ugo does have good resistance. Oops, I went right by her, didn't I? Where is she? Am I crazy? There she is. Yes, I'm crazy. All right, so Ugo, she has decent stats here. 5,500 HP, 3,000 defense, 242 speed, 462 resistance and the fairly low accuracy, but enough to land that leech sometimes. But that's really not as important, honestly, when it comes down to it. Landing the single leech, it's okay, but it's not the end-all be-all because she actually has her cleanse and her heal here, so she can help keep the team going for a while. I do have her, of course, with War Master and Masteries. And then I also used Husk. Now, I used my Husk number 2 for this one. I have multiple Husks that I use. This one is in a bit of mixed gear here. He's okay survivability, not great, but I have a weird mix because I was focusing more getting crit damage. I actually messed up his skills a little bit because he has damage based on attack on his A1 and HP on his A2. So he's a little bit of a hybrid, honestly. I have resistance on him for sure, but I focus more just whatever crit damage I could get on him with good resistance was my goal for this Husk. Like I said, I have 2. Like Royal Guards, I have multiple of that I use as well. And I did focus the crit, making sure I could get like 200 crit damage at least with resistance for sake of the Head of Mischief. And then crit damage is what we really need for that big enemy max HP smash. So he does just fine, pumping out some nice damage, even with a little bit weak of stats overall. My other Krisk, oh yeah, he was in, one of my Krisks was in Reflex gear, but then I stole it from my Royal Guard. I just keep swapping those gear around. It's kind of a hot mess. So same thing here, like he's in a little bit of a mixed gear as well, but this one doesn't have the resistance to be able to withstand with the Head of Mischief, so. But if you don't have a Husk, you also can use Royal Guard. Royal Guard and Reflex is so good. So good. But if you don't have resistance, you have to worry about the Head of Mischief, unless you're paired with someone who's always going to have more buffs than him. So just always keep that in mind, guys. This Royal Guard is a little bit weak as far as crit damage goes as well. But again, I was focusing the Reflex gear and coming back to it more often, and it really does pay off, and he pumps out pretty darn good damage, even with only 100% or 200% crit damage, honestly. And then we have my other Royal Guard here. He's got more crit damage, so this one smacks a bit more, but he doesn't have Reflex gear. You know, sometimes you just have to see how they play out in your teams and what the trade-off is. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about using Helicath and Hydra, right? I wanted to talk about what's making these teams successful right now. So that's why I'm pointing out multiple champions. I hope it's not information overload. I hope it was helpful for you guys to just know who you're looking for. Oh, Geo, the star. Geo's really the star of the show. So, Geo. So Geo number 1 was the one I used, but I also have a Geo in Reflex gear again. So good for Hydra. But Geo was the front champion because when you're fighting against the Head of Torment, and the way it works with Chamel is he ends up boosting the leader every time he goes with that counter attack when someone when the head tries to fear someone. He just goes, and he just gets boosted and gets to go more often and place that HP burn. So Geo is amazing when paired with Chamel for anything with the Head of Torment, period. But he's even better when the Head of Wrath is out. Like, you actually want to attack the Head of Wrath. In this setup, when there's the Head of Torment and the Head of Wrath, those are the 2 heads you focus, and you want the Head of Wrath to go. And that's why Helicath comes in handy, because Helicath can put up that shield or block damage and make sure that you guys are surviving that big smash from the Head of Wrath. And I had no trouble. Like, survivability was not an issue. The only issue for me was if the Head of Decay popped up and started messing everything up, cleansing and taking away my block buffs that I desperately needed. So his passive here is what's crazy. It decreases the damage of all allies received by 15% and deflects that damage onto each enemy under HP burn debuff placed by this champion. If there are multiple champions on the team with the skill, only one will activate. When this champion is attacked, deflects 30% of the damage instead. When deflecting damage on each enemy hit, has a 30% chance of dealing an additional damage equal to 3% of the target's max HP. Like, this is just nuts. Like, you make sure that we go right in there, boom, put that HP burn on the Head of Wrath. Anyone else is doing AoEs, this is really good to put the HP burn up on. And you're just constantly pumping out damage based on Geo's passive. He's just so good for Hydra. And also here, I mean, HP burn, obviously, and then he's under, if people are under HP burn, he steals the buffs instead of just strips the buffs. So this is really helpful for the Head of Wrath that may throw up an increased attack, or the Head of, is it the Head of Suffering that puts up the reflect damage? There's it's so annoying, but he can help strip them off. And then an AoE decreased accuracy just really helps in general. And AoEs are nice when you're dealing with a Head of Torment and Chamel. So many great champions that are a part of this team. Let me just show you guys real quick here. This was my comp. This is RSL Helper behind me. RSL Helper again. If you guys ask me in the comments, I'm going to tell you to watch the video. RSL Helper. Look it up. There's a Discord. Farbstuff is the creator. If you like it, support it. Hit the donate button. It's an amazing tool. Anyway, but Helicath is great for Hydra, guys. We knew this was going to be a thing. We knew he was going to be amazing with the Head of Wrath to help keep your team alive. Just make sure you guys remember final notes again for my long spiel talking about whole bunches of Hydra things in this video. If you're dealing with the Head of Mischief as part of the comp, you need to make sure you have enough resistance to resist the steal of the buffs, or you need to make sure that block buffs is up the entire time, or else you're screwed. He's just gonna put that shield on him and then spread it to everybody else. You don't want that. He's gonna take that block damage, put it on him, spread it to everyone else. Now you'll notice it did happen to me a couple times here and there when I was trying it, especially in the Brutal. I actually tried him in my other comp, like I mentioned, in Brutal instead. It just wasn't quite working. I felt like I didn't really need him, actually. I wasn't using the block damage. I felt like in that team in particular, cardio was just a little bit better, so I swapped him out. But I look forward to trying more Hydra comps with Helicath, and I will try to show off some more in the future if I use him in some different spots, or if I can get a nice Brutal key using him, I will try to show that as well. But he definitely can be part of a great team supporting a solid one key hard build, and I 100% know he can help for Brutal and Nightmare. Everything just has to scale up accordingly, right? That is what it is. But thank you guys for watching this video. I know that was a little bit of information overload. I hope I didn't confuse people by talking about a little bit of everything with each champion. I just wanted to point out a few key things for when you're talking, especially like Brutal and Hard Hydra. The only thing that I didn't point out, because I didn't need to worry about it on my team because of block buffs, is Mordecai, more HP burn placing, Head of Blight, thumbs up there. But yeah, so many good champions that I'm excited to finally have more built for doing Hydra. I'll try my best to put out some more Hydra videos in the future and talk about very specific champions maybe, and maybe kind of spotlight why certain people are good for against certain heads, or spotlight, let's talk about a certain head and then which champions are good to counteract that head. Maybe we'll do some stuff like that in the future, but for now, I'll leave you with that, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.